3 days ago, I was immersed in work, analyzing spreadsheets and preparing for an upcoming presentation. My phone buzzed, a message from my wife, Sophia. It was brief and cold. Liam, I want a divorce. Please direct all future communication through my lawyer, Mr. Thompson. His contact details will follow. 15 years of marriage ended with a text. I stared at the message, emotions swirling, shock, hurt, anger. But overriding all was a sense of clarity. She had set the terms, communication through lawyers only. I replied simply, understood. Sophia had supplementary cards on my accounts, not joint ownership, just authorized user status. I logged into my banking apps and removed her as an authorized user. I also canceled the monthly transfer I had been sending to her personal account for discretionary spending. Shared subscriptions like Netflix and Amazon Prime, all under my name, were logged out on all devices, and passwords were changed. The car she drove was leased in my name. I didn't cancel the insurance immediately, it would be too risky, but I made a note to discuss the lease transfer with my lawyer as soon as possible. An hour later, I received an email with Mr. Thompson's contact details. I forwarded them to Ms. Reynolds, a top divorce attorney recommended by a colleague. I explained the situation and requested immediate counsel on next steps in asset protection. After finishing my work project, I went home. The house was empty. She must have packed while I was out. I slept, surprisingly well. 72 hours later, on Friday afternoon, my phone rang. An unknown number. I had a feeling. Hello? Is this Liam Anderson? Yes, this is Mr. Thompson. I represent Sophia Anderson. My client is experiencing some difficulties. Okay. Her cards have been declined and funds have been cut off abruptly. This is highly irregular. Mr. Thompson, my wife texted me on Tuesday, demanding a divorce and stating all communication must go through you. I acknowledged and complied. Informal financial arrangements ceased. Future support needs formal legal discussion through you and my counsel, Ms. Reynolds, whom I'm retaining. She needs funds now, for necessities and accommodation. Where is she? That's not pertinent. You acted in bad faith, cutting her off without warning. Mr. Thompson, my wife unilaterally ended our marriage via text and set the lawyers only rule. She ended the status quo of trust and communication. Financial support will be determined legally, not by frantic calls over declined cards. She wasn't the primary holder of the accounts. My client seeks emergency financial relief. That's her prerogative. Direct filings to my attorney, Ms. Reynolds. You have her details. Yes. Excellent. Conversation concluded per my wife's directive. Good day. Ms. Reynolds got back to me the same day. She confirmed my actions were logical given Sophia's text and advised me to document everything. Mr. Thompson's first move came on Monday, a formal request for emergency temporary spousal support, plus exclusive use of the marital home, which Sophia had already left. The amount requested was astronomical. Essentially, she wanted me to fund her old lifestyle, new housing, and legal fees. Ms. Reynolds responded with a much lower temporary support figure based on actual need, not wants. She noted that Sophia had left the home, which I still occupied, and highlighted her lawyers-only rule and my actions as a direct consequence. Then the personal attacks began. Sophia's best friend, Emily, called on Wednesday night. Liam, what the actual hell? Sophia's on my couch. You cut her off. She couldn't buy groceries. She's homeless. Emily, Sophia demanded a divorce via text and specified lawyers only. I respected her wishes. Bullshit. You know she barely works. How can she live? She's terrified. Before she hired a lawyer or talked to me, I said financials go through him and my lawyer. The process she chose. You're cruel and vindictive. After 15 years, instructing lawyers only is a specific choice. Was hiring Mr. Thompson also a mistake? She deserves support. You always took care of her. And I would have discussed things amicably if she hadn't ended the marriage via text and lawyered up. She set the rules. We follow them now. She'll take you for everything. She can try. Filed legally. My attorney handles it. Not discussing this further. Goodbye. I also received a bank alert about an attempted withdrawal from an old savings account. It turns out there was one joint account we'd opened ages ago and completely forgotten about. It only had about $500 left in it. Sophia apparently found the debit card and tried to drain it. The bank flagged the sudden activity on the dormant account. I went straight there, explained the pending divorce, and froze the account pending legal agreement. It's not about the money, it's the attempt while her lawyer screams bad faith at me. Ms. Reynolds says this actually helps us. It shows Sophia isn't just passively waiting but actively trying back channels outside the process she demanded. The emergency support hearing was held last week. Sophia was there, looking stressed and avoiding my gaze. Mr. Thompson argued she was destitute, victimized by my malicious actions. Ms. Reynolds calmly presented the text where Sophia initiated lawyers only, bank statements showing I canceled supplementary cards and allowances tied to my accounts after the text, and proof that I still paid mortgage, utilities, lease, and insurance, major fixed costs. She also presented evidence of Sophia's attempt to drain the dormant joint account after demanding lawyers only. Sophia's income showed her part-time earnings. She wasn't destitute, just missing discretionary funds. The judge wasn't buying Mr. Thompson's drama and asked Sophia why there was no prior discussion. She mumbled something about being intimidated. The judge seemed skeptical. The result, temporary support ordered, way closer to our figure than theirs. Enough for basics and a contribution to legal fees, but zero funding for her old lifestyle. The judge basically told Sophia her own actions, the text, the account drain attempt, contributed to her current situation. But they weren't done. This week, the real game started. A call from my HR department about an anonymous complaint alleging misuse of company resources for personal legal matters and erratic behavior suggesting instability. Thankfully, my boss knows me. The complaint was vague. HR checked logs and found nothing. After a quick chat with me, they dismissed it. It was a clear attempt to mess with my job. Ms. Reynolds noted it. Tough to prove the anonymous source, but it adds to the pattern. Sophia's mother called, in tears, accusing me of being heartless. She said Sophia was struggling and that the judge was unfair. She implored me to give Sophia more money, reminding me of the years she gave me. I responded that Sophia chose this path and that lawyers handle financials as she requested. I couldn't discuss it further. She called me heartless and hung up. Their tactics clarified the situation. Simply reacting wasn't enough. I needed to proactively secure my position legally and shut down avenues for manipulation, strictly by the book. Ms. Reynolds sent Mr. Thompson a letter stating that temporary support was established and that Sophia needed to handle the car, take over the lease if qualified, or return it. I stopped payments. The next cycle, insurance coverage, which I'd maintained, would cease concurrently. She had 30 days to resolve it within the legal framework. We filed for formal exclusive use and she left and the judge didn't grant it to her. We started the valuation process for sale. A buyout was unlikely given her finances. We were establishing clear legal control and asset division. As the financial discovery phase began, the gloves came off. Ms. Reynolds filed for full disclosure of all accounts, investments, and assets. Sophia had always claimed she had very little money, just a part-time income and some minor savings. What we found was enlightening. Turns out she had been slowly diverting funds from a separate PayPal account over the last 18 months. Small freelance gigs, gifted funds from her family, and even cash back from joint purchases, all quietly hoarded. Not illegal, but certainly hidden. And certainly inconsistent with her I have nothing sob story. Ms. Reynolds compiled this into a full report for the court. It wasn't about the amount. It was about the misrepresentation and the fact she claimed destitution to inflate her emergency support. The court doesn't like liars, especially ones who try to manipulate the system while playing the victim. We were ordered into mediation. It's not about fixing the relationship, just an attempt to settle some of the big-ticket issues without dragging everything into a courtroom. Sophia walked in with Mr. Thompson at her side. She didn't look at me. She'd lost weight, carried a forced calmness, and sat rigid, like she was being watched or judged even by the walls. Mr. Thompson demanded full spousal support for 5 years, full ownership of the marital home. My car, she said hers was unreliable, half of my retirement account, and 70% of all liquid cash assets. Ms. Reynolds laughed, actually laughed. Then, calmly responded. Temporary support had already been set and was fair. The home would either be sold or bought out. The car issue had legal limitations. It wasn't hers. Retirement accounts would be split per statute 50/50ths of the marital portion. And no, she wasn't getting 70% of anything. The mediator asked if Sophia was willing to counter. She didn't speak. Mr. Thompson leaned in and said, "We'll take our chances with a judge." We agreed. We walked out, and Miss Reynolds said quietly, "They're bluffing. That list was ridiculous. They know it. Behind all the legal maneuvering, behind the texts and filings and hearings, is the psychological war no one talks about. There are mornings I wake up and wonder how we got here. I used to hold her hand while we walked through snowstorms. I used to bring her tea when she was sick. I used to plan our future. Now I have to explain to my lawyer why she tried to siphon money out of a forgotten PayPal account. There are nights when I almost text her, just to say why, or really, but I don't. That text would show up in court. It would be spun. It would break the chain of lawyers only. So I stare at my ceiling and think about how silence has become both weapon and shield. People on the outside don't see the whole picture. They hear one line, "He cut her off." And that's all they need to turn me into the villain of the story. They imagine a cold-hearted man punishing his wife with silence and financial withdrawal, probably grinning while she struggles to scrape together rent. That's the version they like. It's easier, neater, a clean narrative with a clear bad guy. But the truth? The truth is buried under layers of her decisions, strategic, calculated ones that nobody seems interested in unpacking. They don't know she went full no contact, dropped the lawyer bomb like a grenade, and then stepped back, expecting me to keep dancing like nothing changed. They don't know she didn't ask for space. She demanded it. She didn't request time to figure things out. She served terms. She didn't want conversation. She wanted containment. And the moment I responded exactly the way she insisted, with boundaries, formalities, and distance, she panicked, because the fantasy crumbled the instant I complied. She thought she could script the story, paint me as unstable, selfish, dramatic. She thought I'd react like a man unhinged, blowing up her phone, sending angry messages, crying for closure. She thought she could weaponize her silence in my panic, but when the silence came from me, it wasn't emotional, it was procedural. It was a shift from personal to professional. It was me treating her not like a lover, not like a partner, but like a legal adversary. Because that's what she made herself. And that's where the fear set in for her. While she had emotion, I had discipline. While she had drama, I had documentation. While she was venting to friends, writing long texts she never sent, trying to control the narrative, I had spreadsheets, receipts, screenshots, timelines. She had allies who wanted gossip. I had a lawyer with a binder of indexed evidence. You could see it on her face every time something didn't go the way she expected in court. She thought emotional storytelling would sway the judge, but the judge didn't care about tears unless they were backed by facts. And facts, I had in abundance. She called it cruelty. I called it compliance. She wanted court. She got it. She wanted distance. I delivered it in full through third-party correspondence. With every Ethan will respond via counsel stamped in cold ink. She wanted boundaries. I enforced them. Not out of spite, but out of sheer necessity. You can't claim emotional devastation and also expect unfettered access to your former spouse's money, home, and life. That's not heartbreak. That's hypocrisy. And here's what she never expected. She expected war, but not with someone who came to the battlefield with strategy instead of rage. She wanted a chess game, but assumed I'd show up playing checkers. She underestimated me. But I'm not the man she left. I'm the man her actions created. And the difference between us was never about who loved harder. It was about who could let go cleaner. Here's something nobody tells you about silence. It's not passive. It's not weak. It's strategic. Silence is terrifying when you've been used to power, especially the emotional kind. Sophia expected something else from me entirely. She thought the fallout would be loud, chaotic. She imagined me broken, angry, shouting at her for answers that would never come. Maybe even begging her to reconsider, fighting, apologizing, something, anything. But what she got was paperwork, dry, emotionless compliance. She got protocols and legal filings. She got cold efficiency. I wasn't chasing. I wasn't reacting. I wasn't playing her game. And that's what started to crack her armor. Not rage, not revenge. Silence. Real silence, not the kind you use to punish someone, the kind you use to reclaim yourself. You could see it hit her during the hearing. We were sitting on opposite sides of the courtroom. Her eyes kept darting over to me, scanning my face, looking for cracks, looking for evidence that I was hurt, undone, struggling under the weight of it all. But I wasn't. I was steady, hands folded, notes organized, voice calm, no outbursts, no snide remarks, no glances of longing or regret, nothing she could grab onto, nothing she could manipulate, just silence. And in that silence, I saw the confusion flicker in her expression, like a child who expected a toy to dance when she pushed a button, and it didn't. That courtroom wasn't just about support or assets, it was about control. And when I refused to give her any emotional fuel, she had nothing to burn. That terrified her. I realized then, this was never about the divorce, not really. It was about narrative. She wanted to be the one who left the man who lost it all. The man who collapsed, humiliated, vindictive, and bitter. But she didn't get that version of me. She got the one who adapted, the one who took a deep breath, made a few calls, hired the right lawyer, and moved on without giving her the satisfaction of a single broken sentence. That silence? It wasn't just the absence of words, it was the presence of control. She didn't know how to fight that. And I wasn't playing chess with my heart anymore. I was playing it with my attorney, and we were already 3 moves ahead. By the 6th week, something subtle but undeniable had shifted. I felt it first in the tone of her lawyer's messages, less certainty, more guarded wording. Then in the way Olivia's demands came slower, almost like they were fishing for a reaction that wasn't coming. The leverage she thought she had, emotional, financial, symbolic, it was slipping away. The emergency spousal support she'd fought so hard for had been granted, yes, but only in a minimal, temporary form. The courts saw through the drama. Her inflated requests for continued lifestyle support were rejected with cold legal logic. And the money? That wasn't the real issue anymore. Not really. What shook her more was the fact that I had completely withdrawn my emotional presence. I wasn't arguing, pleading, trying to make sense of it. I wasn't reacting. I was gone. Not physically, not financially. Legally, I was doing everything by the book. But emotionally, spiritually, she couldn't reach me anymore. And for someone like Olivia, who thrived on being the center of attention, of importance, of control, that was the real punishment. She didn't want me back.
That much was clear. But she didn't want me done, either. She wanted me to orbit, to still be accessible in some way. Still hers, in spirit, if not in law. Unfortunately for her, I'm a man who finishes what he starts. And this ending? I was walking it all the way through. So with the temporary support ruling behind us, Ms. Reynolds and I sat down to craft what we hoped would be a final settlement proposal. Clean, fair, and designed to wrap this chapter with minimal further bloodshed. We proposed the following. The marital home would be sold, and the proceeds split equally. I would retain my retirement accounts in full. She would receive a cash offset from other liquid assets. Spousal support would continue for a fixed period of 18 months, then terminate entirely. From that point on, each of us would be responsible for our own legal costs. And finally, post-divorce, there would be no contact except in documented emergencies related to shared property or legal closure. It was a clear, balanced offer, more generous than I was legally required to make. We sent it to Mr. Thompson. He responded with what I can only describe as wishful thinking dressed up in legalese. He requested an extension of spousal support to 3 full years and insisted I cover the entirety of her legal costs. We declined. There was nothing left to discuss. No middle ground to discover. Olivia didn't want resolution, she wanted control, or at least some illusion of it. And since that was gone, she wanted someone to blame. So we're going to court. And oddly, I'm okay with that. Because I've learned something over these weeks, something no one tells you when you're staring down the ashes of a marriage. When your opponent burns every bridge, silence becomes your sanctuary. When they choose war, and you're already armed with preparation, patience, and truth, peace becomes your power. And when they expect a breakdown, a messy collapse, and instead you deliver a clear, strategic path forward. You win, not just the case. You win in dignity, in control, in the calm, steady reclaiming of your own future. And the moment I realized that, that was the real end of the marriage. Not the text, not the court date, not even the final paperwork. It was the moment I no longer needed her to understand what she'd lost, because I'd already regained everything that mattered. To any man or woman going through this, remember, you don't have to match their chaos. Control the narrative by refusing to participate in the drama. Let the facts speak. Let the law speak. And never apologize for protecting your peace once they've declared war. They wanted the battlefield. Let them walk it alone. You'll be waiting on the other side with your life intact, your integrity preserved, and your future finally free.